This is the Torque Test channel. We spent the last year testing over 150 different tools and recording data from over 1,350 different tests, all thanks to you guys who make this possible by watching videos like these, clicking on things, and even purchasing our super sweet t-shirts. Here are our top 10 most underrated tools, which for the most part will mean factually, like statistically underrated, as in they promised one thing, then over-delivered on our dynos, something that with today's tools is becoming more and more hard to find. You can find links to all these tools below. Number 10. Makita's MidTorques, and I say MidTorques because we're including both their 18-volt LXT and 40-volt XGT here. Deservedly so. Makita's earned itself a soft spot in our heart over the past year for consistently not BSing you with their torque figures. As a reminder, our dyno measures tightening torque both in forward and reverse directions, and when it comes to Makita's tightening torque numbers, they aren't exactly small, but are pretty on point compared to most brands. Case in point here first with their XWT-17Z, which claimed 520 foot-pounds when it came out this year and made 502 for us, or 97%, and enough for the top spot on its mid-torque ranking. And the GWT-07Z, which claimed a record number of 560 in tightening in this category and made a record number to go along with that at 568, or 101%, again taking another top spot in the mid-torque category. It may cost more than most dental surgery operations at $350 bare, but at least what they are selling you is not a bill of goods with this torque claims. Truly a heavy-hitting mid-torque impact. Number 9. The Ingersoll Rand 119 Max air hammer. I know what you're thinking, we're going mostly in order of raw numbers, right? And air hammers don't really advertise power numbers because they, well, sort of don't exist until we came up with a dyno built to measure them. But that's just the thing, with no power numbers, every Tom, Dick, and Harry brand out there with a long barrel is claiming to have the most powerful air hammer on the block because how are you going to prove them wrong? But if you find yourself on the 119 Max sell page, they're mostly going to be talking about weight, length, vibration reduction, all while offering the type of power we found to compare to tool truck air hammers for much less coin, around $135, and with the trigger to boot that offers more flexibility than either the Mac or Chief at similar power. The IR 1 hour best air hammer you can buy online episode, and that still stands, we think, underrated air hammer for sure. Number 8. The Metabo HPT High Torque. This tool surprised us, but I have a feeling it didn't surprise the folks at Hikoki because they probably knew it was going to make the 780 foot-pounds we saw when they rated this tool 775 foot-pounds, or just about 100% of what we saw. Considering we are putting it up against the always very impressive Milwaukee M18 High Torque, which they rated at 1,000, we and probably everyone else clicking on that video expected to see quite some gap, which the M18 was able to build in shorter tests and with low-end out-the-gate dynamic torque. But overall, the Metabo HPT, with this large 36-volt battery, made enough power to make anyone on that platform not too jealous of that red brand offering. We especially like Hikoki's trend of advertising how they came up with their torque figures, how long it took, and bolt size, something virtually no one else is bold enough to do in this category. Number 7. Bosch ProFactor. Much like the Metabo HPT, the 2021 Bosch ProFactor came out with some modest torque specs that almost caused us not to consider purchasing it to test at all, so maybe you wouldn't have purchased it either. After all, these published numbers are all we have to go by when we're looking at new tools, right? But I'm glad we did because the new ProFactor by Bosch scaled up to the top of our cordless chart real quick because it had an ace up its sleeve, requiring its ProFactor batteries for advertised performance, which starts at the 8 amp hour size. Considering the tool is sold only bare, we tried this one out with a 21700 cell 4 amp hour core battery and that 8 amp hour ProFactor battery, and both iterations did quite well. But what earned the Bosch a spot near the top is that still reasonably priced 8 amp hour 21700 cell pack, making 793 foot-pounds, which is about 107% of their 740 claim. We asked you guys which battery version should stay on the rank chart, and you overwhelmingly voted, like 900 to 18 voted, to keep this 8 amp hour animal where it was. Bosch claimed 740, said you needed an 8 amp hour to hit it, and ours hit 793. Good stuff. Number 6. Cobalt's brushless impact wrench. This tool is not a lot of things. It's not their XTR, It's not rated at 180 foot-pounds like their website says. It's rated 200 like it shows on the box. It's not very small at 6.1 inches long. It unfortunately gets grouped into our mid-torque category because it missed that sort of size cutoff, and realistically isn't a mid-torque, but it's also not expensive, only $99. So what is it though? It's underrated. Even if you ignore the website claims and take the box at its word of 200, this tool made 220 foot-pounds. And yeah, while over-delivering is always good, but this one doesn't really belong at the top of any ranking, to be honest. If we were to bump this one down to the compact size impact category with its 226 points, it would go from second to last to third to last in this case. The XTR Impact Driver made a similar 223 foot-pounds, and it's also a similar looking shape, albeit a bit shorter. Here's hoping for an XTR version of this impact wrench sometime soon. Number 5. The Stanley MidTorque in both DeWalt and Craftsman flavors. Both of these tools under-promised and over-delivered in their own ways. The Craftsman under-promised, we think, as some protection for the more spendy yellow brand, and made around 125% of its meager 275 foot-pound claim. DeWalt under-promised as well, even with higher numbers than that Craftsman, despite being maybe a bit mirror-like under the hood. And when you include the fancy battery options DeWalt offers, like 21700 cells, the tool can hit a full 130% of its 330 foot-pound claim. Really the type of performance that when Milwaukee's Gen 1 was around going head-to-head versus this, that you would not have expected it to keep up with. But it does, thanks to Stanley's seemingly conservative power ratings on impact wrenches. Number 4. In fourth place, we have the entire category of cordless compact impact wrenches. If you want to pick a class of impact wrenches and expect to see honest numbers, take a look at cordless compacts. The highest ranked Makita is a standout with 240 claimed versus 337 made here, but that tool does also have a super high 430 foot-pound nut busting claim, unlike some of these others here. While the Milwaukee's might be further down, they only advertise that often generous nut busting figure here as 250, but also make about 252. And DeWalt's newest entries in the form of the DCF 901 or 911 in 20 volt, and maybe the number one cordless compact out there right now, the DCF 921, that's even shorter with more power. Those also fly a bit above their tightening claims. Among impact wrenches, this is not very common, so you gotta enjoy it when you can find a nice little niche like this. You can almost just compare these tools based on their power figures on the boxes. Number 3. In third, we got the Cobalt brushless right angle impact. Also not XTR again, but again well overshooting its torque claim. This time by a full 40%, hitting 252 foot-pounds versus its 180 claim. That might not sound like a ton altogether, that 252, but its closest cordless competition, the M12, only claims one power figure, and that's 220, and we saw as much as 182 with any battery, which didn't change whether we were in mode 3 or just in that reverse only symbol setting. But comparing to the Milwaukee is not required to see just how much this Cobalt is underselling their right angle impact, which is what we're ranking today. If they put 250 on this tool rather than 180, I'm sure it would have helped some in the sales, but instead they get to be on our cool end of the year wrap-up list, so that's something, right? Honestly, most brands sort of choose the other route with the higher sales. Just letting you know, Shervon, it's okay to bump up those numbers a bit. We won't be mad. Number 2. Coming out of left field a bit, we have a light. Yes, an LED inspection light. As you may or may not know, we have made sort of a lumens dyno this year, as well as lots of fails coming from Amazon and others with those lumen claims. If you think impact wrenches are bad, oh boy. But we want to include just this one on the list, the Steelman Pro LED inspection light, which with around a quarter of its light bar dedicated to blacklight UV settings, we figured would come in well under its 400 lumen claim, but instead made 590 lumens, or 148% of its advertised figure. Of course, its battery design and size is a bit of a letdown, but overshooting lumen claims is not something we see in a big way often on this channel, so it gets some props here. Number 1. By far our biggest surprise this year was cordless impact drivers as a category. Impact drivers have the least amount of games being played on the market today out of any power tool we've come across. If your impact driver has a torque rating, it's likely able to hit that. We've reordered our rank list here so you can see them in order of their real percentage claims, But really, all of these, for the most part, are well ahead of their equivalent impact wrench counterparts in torque claim honesty, even within the same brands. It's rare an impact driver doesn't hit 100%, and when it doesn't, it gets penalized for it on the channel. Harbor Freight's Bauer is of course out front, making heaps more power than its claim, but then again, that's easy to do when your claim is a small 108 foot-pounds and your tool is 6.4 inches long as many MidTorques, making 400 to 500 foot-pounds. Special standouts have got to be that Japanese Makita at 138%. They are really underselling that one. I wonder if the new LXT 18-volt Makita driver that they were showing at STAFTA will be the US version of it. If so, I doubt they'll be as reserved about its power claims. Then the DCF 850 at 117%, maybe the most impressive driver all around for sale right now. And the trusty Gen 3 and Cobalt XTR, two absolute bruisers that have earned their reputation they have. Lastly, we want to give credit to a couple honorable mentions that didn't make the list. First, the Chief Air Hammer, which maybe a few assumed was a powerful as a tool truck air hammer, yet we found out sort of is a tool truck air hammer. And lastly, the Mako 20-volt cordless high torque impact, which recently took second place overall, nearly took first, and did take first along with the Snap-on in average power. And while it did well surpass its tightening torque claim of 850 by 5%, its breakaway figure is a whole 1600, the highest of literally anything cordless half-inch on the planet, so that gun, yeah, not exactly underrated when you include that. What are your thoughts on the ranking today? Honestly, our thoughts didn't play much of a part this time, sort of all according to the dyno today. Our next top 10 video will be going over what we feel are the best 2021 tools we tested, all things considered. Be sure to let us know which ones we shouldn't forget about, and thanks for watching.